everybody for coming to Fireside Chat. I just want to ask by a show of hands who is here for the first time. Wow, Bruce. That's a lot of newbies.
Overloaded the whole place with newbies.
Hopefully some of you will come back after today.
The nut bowls are already empty. You see. They don't have the etiquette down.
So if you don't know me, but I think all of you do, I'm Christine Campbell. I'm the host of Fireside Chat. For those of you who haven't been here before, if you didn't read the invitation, it's a combination of speaker series, and then we have always a musician perform. And we have domain experts. We typically change the topic really widely from month to month. It's a semi-monthly salon, and you'll get the gist as you sit here. You'll see what it is. So for today, I think we have the person who's traveled the furthest to come to Fireside Chat. That's Bruce. He traveled today from New York City, just got in. So I'm super honored that I'm super honored that he made the trip to come and speak at Fireside Chat. Bruce was at Forbes magazine for 20 years. He has an MFA and he's a writer by profession. And when he left Forbes, he was managing editor and he ran the tech reporting group. So many of you may know him, or you may have read his work. You probably actually have, even if you don't know it was Bruce's. I'm sure you've read it. But recently, he made a gigantic career change, and he left the world of publishing and is now the head of communications at Hyperloop One. And that's what he's here today to talk about. And when I introduced the topic of Hyperloop to you guys, the attendees of Fireside Chat, awesome and cool people that you are, I would say that probably 30% of you had heard about Hyperloop and were super psyched to know more. And the rest of you are like, what is Hyperloop?
Something you come down with. We get that a lot.
You can't get rid of it.
So, there you go. Bruce and I have been friends for a long time, so I am extremely honored and super excited to have Bruce up in here to talk to us today about Fireside Chat. Please join me in welcoming Bruce. Okay, Bruce.
It's an honor to be here with so many young and beautiful people.
So you and I were talking earlier, and I think the best way to start, for those of you who don't know what Hyperloop is, the genesis of the idea, where it came from, et cetera, if you can talk to us about that.
Sure. So Hyperloop is a way of getting around at high speeds whenever you want. It's point A to point F, or point A to point C, point A to point D. Basically, it's a giant tube. Right now it's made of steel, but it could be made out of a lot of things in the future. And we take most of the air out of the tube to eliminate any aerodynamic friction. And there's a track in the tube, and there's a linear motor that's affixed to the bottom of the tube, and it propels a vehicle, it could be people or cargo, through the tube at airline speeds, or even faster. We can go up to 1,000 kilometers an hour. So you can get from here to San Francisco in 8 minutes. You can go from Dallas to Houston in 15 minutes. You can go London to Manchester in 25 minutes. That's the idea. The whole world is excited about it. It came from Elon Musk. People think we're an Elon Musk company, which is good and bad. It's nice to have that halo of Elonitude, but he's not involved in the company at all. He put out a white paper describing the technology in August of 2013, describing very much what I just talked about. He described it as if a air hockey table, a rail gun, and the Concorde had a three-way. This would be the love job. Take out the air hockey part, because we're not using air bearings to levitate the vehicle. We're using magnetic levitation. But that's the idea, is to eliminate the barriers of time and distance in a way that's more gentle on the environment. We can go underground, or we can fit through very narrow ways because we're on a column and it's only two tubes that can be stacked up on top of each other. So we can be next to the highway, in the middle of the highway. You don't need a new highway. You don't need new airports. We can build a Hyperloop connecting, SFO to San Jose Airport to Oakland, and then you could check in one place and go to Oakland Airport in 5 minutes, faster than it takes you to get from Terminal 3 to Terminal 4 by foot. So we could talk about all the different ways that it can be applied. We like to think of it as to transportation what broadband was to telecommunications, where all of a sudden, instead of having to be at the dependent on the operator or dependent on the owner of the infrastructure, all of a sudden you had everything you wanted, always on. It was fast, and applications ensued. Hyperloop's the same way. It's always on. Departures every 5 minutes, even less. For some cargo customers, we've been talking about pods leaving every 10 seconds. So imagine just showing up whenever you wanted to leave, instead of at a train station waiting an hour, having bad coffee and a croissant. You're gone. You go. You take out your phone, tap the Hyperloop app. Uber picks you up, puts you right at the gate, and you're gone. And you're hundreds of miles away in less than half an hour.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Take like 2 steps back
Yeah.
to when people first heard about it, because the story that you told me is pretty interesting, and it was a little bit of a, it wasn't a planned. I mean, the idea was planned, but how it became public knowledge was not planned.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
So Elon had been nursing the idea for a while privately, I guess, telling some friends about it. This is 2012, 2013. He's flying on a plane. Shervin Pishavar, who's a VC, he's our founder, chairman. He was going on a humanitarian mission to Cuba with Elon and Sean Penn, I think to try
This
to.
one does.
Was it? Yeah, right. I know. Like, who's missing from that plane? To get them to release some journalists that were imprisoned in Cuba. Anyway, so Elon starts talking about the idea in the plane. Shervin's like, oh, that's cool. Can I do that? Can we do it with cargo instead? Because he had just put a bunch of money into Uber, and he had this idea that Uber, was subsidizing the black car business, was subsidizing the more Uber X mass car business, and this idea of adjacencies is pretty powerful, where one product can help pay for the ramp of the next one. Anyway, so Elon said, sure, go ahead, go for it. And then a few months later at the Wall Street Journal All Things Digital Conference, Elon was up on stage with Kara Swisher and Walt Mossberg, and they open it up to Q&A, and Shervin's the first person to hit the mic and says, Elon, what about this Hyperloop idea? And he hadn't told anyone about it in public. And Elon's like, oh, fuck. You can see the look on his face, like the blood comes out of his face. So he said, all right, fine. He talks about it. That's when he gave that Concorde railgun quote. And he promised at that point to put it out there by the summer. So that summer came, put out the white paper, and the internet just went bananas. All these Hyperloop entities started to form. There was a crowdsourced one, there was a university one, there's a Canadian one, a Dutch one, there's a Delft one in Brussels. Where Delft is in Amsterdam. Near in the Netherlands. Yeah, I get confused. And our company was incorporated in June of 2014, and started in someone's garage in Los Feliz in LA. And a few people were hired, money got raised, and now we're up to 200 people with campus in LA and 2 research sites in Nevada.
And you raised $160 million.
$160 million, yeah. And we get to raise a lot more.
And you guys,
Which is why
you guys
I'm here.
are not the
She told me you guys were loaded.
Yeah. No, I did not say
You
that.
did, she did.
Secretly how I got Bruce to come. No, not at all. But there are many other companies that were formed to do the execution of Hyperloop.
Yeah.
You guys are not the only ones. So can you give us a bit of background for that, just so that everybody has like the global scope of
what else is going on? Yeah, so we kind of are the only company doing it. I mean, so the Elon Musk connection hasn't gone away. So SpaceX, which is legitimately his company, there are a bunch of engineers there are really excited about it, and Elon is excited about it and wanted to support their enthusiasm with it. So they did a SpaceX Hyperloop pod competition, which kicked off last January at Texas A&M. They had teams from all over the world. These are university, usually grad students, building pods to their spec, and they would get judged on their design and how well it met with the principles of Hyperloop. So the winners of that are now going to go to SpaceX again in January. They've built a 1 mile long small tube, kind of like a soapbox derby type tube, and they're going to race their pods and see who wins.
Where is that track?
So that's in LA. It's in Hawthorne,
Okay.
down near
Okay.
LAX.
Okay.
And then there's a company called HTT, which is in LA. They haven't built anything or done anything, but they made a lot of noise. And there's a group in Toronto called Transpod. This is your neck of the woods. But again, we all went to this big train trade show in Berlin called InnoTrans every 2 years. If you ever want to have a good time, go to a train show. I just tell you, it's such a weird industry. There's companies that just make this signal. There's companies that just make the frame around the signal. There's companies that make just those carts that serve coffee down the middle. Hasn't been rolled up yet. Anyway, so we had a pretty nice sized booth. The other guys had like a yoga mat with a thing. But we know that if this thing takes off, no doubt in my mind that like GE or Siemens or some of these big companies will throw 500 engineers to start a Hyperloop, and that would be of concern.
Okay. And so did you mention that all of Elon's paper is open source, so
Yeah.
anyone can, start a company around it? And that it was in reaction to the high-speed rail system that Jerry Brown was proposing, and I don't know where the bond dollar value, it would be publicly financed through bonds, right? You didn't say all that.
Part of Elon's motivation was he has to travel between Tesla and SpaceX all the time and get stuck in LA traffic, and he was looking at the headlines that this California high-speed rail project is now up to, I don't know, $60-70 billion and hasn't gotten off the ground. They've spent billions just getting this far, and it's kind of silly for a train that is only an incremental improvement over regular rail and doesn't even get to the city center on either end. You'd have to spend an hour just to get out to the terminus. We think there's a better way to go. So Elon thought there was a better way to go. We definitely agree. And we're not even looking at the San Francisco to LA route at all. There's a lot more. There's so much politics. It's too big a project, and we would never get through. So we're looking elsewhere right now.
Why would you never get through? Because of rights of way?
Yeah, the state can't acquire that much land. And it would be a private entity that would with the permission of the state, and it's just too much for a startup like us to bite off that that big of a route. It'd be great. It's a great city pair, but we think there's a better play. Like Melbourne to Sydney would be more doable,
Right.
Which is even more of a busy city pair than San Francisco to LA.
Okay, so we'll get back to that in a second, but for those of us who are not as tech savvy as many of you in the room, can you explain to the lay person essentially what it is about Hyperloop that can shoot people that fast through a tube and not kill them?
Right. So it's magnets and it's electricity. So if you combine the two, you can get a lot of things done. So imagine a motor. Electric motors work by spinning two opposite copper coils around each other. So you stretch that out and makes well, I'm getting this wrong, I know it. But we basically a linear electric motor is a bunch of copper that you electrify, and the way it's designed, it produces a magnetic field that repels something. So if you know how putting two magnets together the wrong side, they push against each other. So we're harnessing that same power at very high power, and it pushes a vehicle down, and we just fire these what they're called stator blocks in sequence, and the thing gets faster and faster and faster. So we're putting those in a track. If it's 100 miles long, there could be 3 miles of that acceleration. So you're only going about 0.4 Gs, which is the same as an Airbus 380 taking off. And then you glide. So once you're off the motors, you've lifted off like around 10, 20 miles an hour. The track is lined with a conductive surface like aluminum. And there's permanent magnets on the bottom of the vehicle that when they reach a certain speed, lift up off the conductor and just glide, at a good cushion of magnetism for as long as it needs to. It's quiet. And then when you reach the end, you reach a deceleration block where we reverse the current. There could be mechanical braking, or regenerative braking, where it takes some of the power back out and puts it to the tube next door on the way out, and it slows it down. At the same acceleration, so it's comfortable. It's not as scary as it sounds. I mean, I'm trying to read up now on the introduction of new transportation technologies. The airplane and trains right now were really dangerous, and it took a long time for people to get their heads around getting into one of those things. I mean, when the first cars were sold in England, when you bought a car, you came with a person who would run ahead of the car with red flags, like waving it around.
So you're going to be running in front of supersonic speeds.
Yeah. No, but it's. We think it's going to be super safe. It's inherently way safer than trains, cars, planes, because it's autonomous. So there's no one falling asleep or having a bad night or looking the other way.
So there's no driver.
No driver, and it's all enclosed. There's no weather hazard, and it's not at grade, so you can't slam into anything else, like a cow or a stalled truck or something. So you take those three things together: weather, grade crossings, and driver error, and that's 90% of the cause of all surface transportation accidents. So.
Okay, so I have some questions about risk that I'm going to ask in a second. But so you've got a pod in a tube, and how big is the pod, and how big is the tube?
So there'd be different sizes. So there's pods for containers, which are 7 to 8 meters wide in diameter, and there's people pods, which are like 3 to 4 meters. And this is the tube itself, and the pods will be like 50 to 60% of the area inside the tube.
Okay, so magnets have been
so
around.
It'll feel like being in a. It's no different than being in an Amtrak train. I've measured the circle.
Okay.
Of the Acela train. It's no different.
But okay, so
you can fit like 6 people. You and I can sit with a table.
Yeah. Oh.
And have a coffee.
Okay.
As we're moving in the tube.
But you can't really see anything because you'll be moving so fast. So will you have windows, or will you?
There's a solution to that, but I can't talk about it.
Come on, Bruce. We're amongst friends.
If you just wait till the 7th of November, we're going to unveil a kick-ass new vision that will change everything we're talking about today. You'll think a whole different thing about Hyperloop. It's going to be pretty cool, and it will involve windows.
Okay. So, and when you and I were talking, you were saying that the air hockey thing is not.
Yeah. So yeah, Elon's design had a big compressor in the front, like a jet engine, that was sucking air in, both to reduce the drag even more, and to the air down through these little holes to create a cushion of air, and it would ride on a cushion of air. So we looked at that, and it takes too much energy. You would need a lot of onboard batteries, take up a lot of room. So we're going with the passive maglev.
Okay, and it's in a vacuum.
Which is pretty well known.
Right.
It's a near vacuum. It's 100 pascals, which is like the atmosphere where the Concorde flew. It's like almost near space.
Okay, so if, for example, it breaks down, even though I know probably it won't because you guys are doing all kinds of risk analysis, and you have to escape from the pod into the tube, you wouldn't be able to breathe. But you're going to fix it, not you, but the engineers. Yeah,
there'd probably be, I'm just guessing. We've talked about this. I mean, we talked about having bulkheads along the way, so you could depressurize a section of tube where if there's been an issue, without having to suck to put air back into the entire length of tunnel. So we're talking 200 kilometers or something. So then people can get out and walk to an escape hatch.
Okay, so magnets have been around forever.
Yeah.
Why hasn't anybody done this before? What is new about the technology that allows for something this innovative?